You're good.
Okay, good morning, everyone. First of all, we're moved our location where we're meeting here. We had a big power outage, had no air across the street in Victor Building. So just want to thank Fran and Chris for jumping over the hurdles to get our meeting set. And we're doing the best we can with different technology and all that. So please be patient with us, everyone that's on.
Can you hear us okay, Rod and Amanda?
Rod, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good morning.
Amanda, you're good?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you all for your time. We'll got this as much as possible. I just want to give you an update. Treasurer Lowry, good news, he is back in the state. He is home and his son is staying with him and he's making great progress. He came in last week for a little bit and we're communicating with him more. So we're just very encouraged about his recovery. It's going well and just want to bring you up to speed on that. So I'm filling in for him today. And Fran, again, our director, does a great job. We'll let her run a lot of this, but I think the most important thing is we have a quorum at first. And I think let's call roll or whatever we need to do to make sure we have a quorum. Is that?
We're good. Checked the people on attendance. Rod Graves from Teacher Retirement is here. Division of Higher Ed is absent. That's why we have the quorum. So
Okay. Well, thank y'all. So we have a quorum, call the meeting to order. And so next we'll approve the minutes. And we'll have a chance to review the minutes from the March 7th meeting.
Seems like a lifetime ago.
We need a minute to look over that.
yeah, so Rob, with it being a quorum, you'll have to initiate the majority of the motions and then
Okay, motion to approve the minutes.
So we have a motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
you have to.
All right, I'll second that. Okay, do I call all in favor, say aye? All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Questions? Okay, next item. Let's go into our business and we'll let Fran, our director,
Yes.
give your report and direct us.
All right, I'll direct you. So I have a couple of things to update everyone on. In the last few weeks, we've gotten some pretty good television appearances on the CBS affiliate here in town called The Vine. It's their 9 o'clock general interest show, as well as Channel 7, which is the ABC affiliate. They have an afternoon program. And most of the discussion that I had was to promote a June campaign that we have going on right now with the 529 plan, which is to encourage people to sign up for recurring contributions. We went back and forth on whether, is June a good time or people aren't thinking about 529, but it was also kind of, I capitalized on that, and tried to weave in another project that we're slowly or kind of quietly promoting, which is an idea that Chris came up with, which is to talk to parents who have children who would be transitioning from daycare into pre-K or kindergarten. So realizing that there might be some extra money now as a result, hey folks, why don't you consider taking maybe 25 or 50 of that and start getting in a good habit now? So we'll have an idea for the recurring campaign through the month of June. We are doing a $25 incentive to match. So if you already have a 529, but it wasn't set up for recurring, or if you've never had a 529 and open one and set it up for recurring, we'll match each account you do that for $25. So as of last week, we were looking at about 60 people who had taken advantage of that. We won't know for sure if that's the number we're going to land on until probably August 1st, because it comes with the rules say that it has to be a funded account. So just because 60 people have opened an account doesn't mean everybody's funded it yet. So, but if we're somewhere in that ballpark, I will be thrilled, because that means they're a long-term investor. Then on our other efforts to promote the 529, the last few weeks or months, Chris and I have made a pretty concerted effort to meet with the HR directors at a lot of the state agencies and departments. And in our meetings, and we'll send you all, Amanda and Rod will send you an electronic version of this. But this, I can't remember if we had this already done at the last meeting or not. Oh, do you all already have one, or?
I handed them out.
Oh, you did, okay. So this is a brochure that a census helped us with. You need one here. That speaks to the employer about the benefits of offering direct deposit for your employees to take advantage of the 529. And specific to state agencies and directors, the Arkansas 529 and ABLE plan are both approved for state employees to have direct deposits taken out of their paycheck. So there are like 18 different funds that legislators have approved for employees' checks to be tapped into, and the 529 is one of them. So it was just a real good experience. I don't know, did we include the list in the board packets of who all we met with? I'm just going to read through because it's a pretty impressive group. Public Service Commission, Transformation and Shared Services, Veterans Affairs, Parks, Heritage and Tourism, Department of Labor, Department of Agriculture, Election Commission, Department of Education, Department of Human Services, Supreme Court, Attorney General, Ethics Commission, Office of the Courts, State Auditor, Secretary of State, Game and Fish, and Energy and Environment. So it was, and that's not everybody. We still have some more. So we really enjoyed it. And it was a good refresher because there were a lot of people who still thought it was only for college. So.
I mean, the process of doing the payroll, I really, this was an ACH.
Right.
I mean, no different than like a Christmas account to your check, how you divide your paycheck up. So this process is really easy. Did HR or human resources or whichever group you go to?
We set the meetings up with the HR directors.
So they found it technically pretty easy to deal with, correct?
Yeah.
As soon as we tell them they just got to plug in the routing number and the account number, they get pretty excited.
Oh my gosh.
So I know if you go back a number of years before ACH really became the common, people were doing payroll deduction through this, like taking and sending us an actual physical check.
Right.
And then you kind of roster, and we would disperse that up in the roster. And HR departments were like, we don't.
Yeah, and I don't blame them. I wouldn't have blamed them. But
That's awesome.
well, and what really helped is they had we sent them electronic copies of not this, but these one-pagers that explain ABLE and explain 529. They sent it out to all their employees, and there are a number of them that invited us to come back in September and October during open enrollment, even though they understood these could be opened any time. We're going to go back and present, to the employees directly. So, yeah.
We're
Very-
very encouraged, right on into County Treasurer Lowry to get out, the people, the low hanging fruits right here, state government
Yeah.
agencies to identify with how with connections and just where it is. And Fran and Chris have done a great job just picking up. I think it's something you got to be selling, like go back, but they've made contacts now, which is fabulous
Right.
to build on.
And
Impressive list. I've got some plans that would take 2 years to even know.
well, she's not here around the table, but Jackie Baker, who is our new HR director, reached out to her colleagues on our behalf and opened up the door. So she's to be commended for that. Then the only other thing, Chris is going to be going to, and kind of along the same lines of the HR angle, there's the Society of Human Resources Management Conference in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and there are about 500 HR professionals that attend that. So he'll be going and really promoting the plan to outside state agency folks. we participated in what used to be called the governor's coding competition, but our current governor doesn't really take it in. So it's just the all-state coding competition, but we've done it this was our 7th year. And we're just, the 529 plans kind of be passed through. We don't put whoever their sponsor is puts up the $10,000. And so, but we're there for the check presentations and first place winners get $2,000 in a 529, second place get 1,000, and third place get 500. Then lastly, Chris was with most of you, I believe, at Treasury Management Symposium in Portland a few weeks ago and attended some 529 sessions.
Yep.
What were those on?
So I attended both 529 and ABLE sessions, specifically to the 529. Some great sessions were around they call it State of the States. It's where some selected states go around and share ideas, best practices, what's working for marketing, what's not. And then also, changes from Secure 2.0 with the Roth IRA roll over into a 529. It was really great just to be able to network and talk amongst other college saving industry peers.
All right. And that concludes, any questions on any of the things I kind of went through?
Any questions for Fran, for Chris?
I don't think so. Should I move on to the checks and invoices for approval? Okay. So Rod, he would have received,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, I've seen them.
Okay, so the checks and invoices have been sent out to those who need to approve it. Are there any questions? I don't know, Eric, if you've had a chance to look at that. And it's all pretty standard stuff, nothing out of the ordinary. So do I have a motion to approve the checks and invoices?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say
We have a motion second.
aye. Aye.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. Oh, sorry, I don't think you're all. Then the last thing, and then I'll be quiet. We have been, so when Treasurer Lowry came into office, he had indicated that he was interested in utilizing another ad agency, which we're totally fine with. But in light of the health issues that he had, we obviously did not want to make such a big transition to a new ad agency in his absence. And so we asked our current agency, Vines Brookshire, if they would consider extending for the remainder of this calendar year, so another 6 months, just to keep but they also are aware that we are searching for another agency, and that they've been very, they've been very agreeable to work with. I don't feel like they've done anything to sabotage or give us anything less than, what they've given us. But we have we have preliminary meetings with 2 different agencies in town who are going to come back and make formal presentations in August. So at our next meeting, we will come in with a recommendation on who we think might be, and we don't have to send it out, constitutional offices, we don't have to send it out for RFP. So, but I did want an approval, Rod, to go ahead and extend the existing contract another 6 months, and it would be for the $45,000, which is what we paid for the first 6 months of this year. So it'd be the same amount to get us through December.
And if I heard you right just now, this doesn't require any procurement or reviews at legislative level or anything like that?
No, sir, it does not.
Okay,
And this is just, so what we're voting on right now is to, for continuity's sake, to go ahead and continue working with the existing ad agency through the end of the year. And then we will spend the latter part of this year interviewing other agencies. And then we'll come before the board in September with the recommendation on who that agency should be and get questions or approval. And then in a perfect world, the new agency would begin in January of 24 with some time for transitioning over with the assistance of our current agency.
Okay, I'll make the motion to extend the contract with the current agency.
Great, thank you.
Second that motion.
Okay, any questions or opposed? All right. Thank you all.
Frank, so is there anything?
Oh, and then
Add something else.
the last thing, I'm going to turn it over to John Peace to talk about the investment policy that we should be reviewing annually.
Yeah, the committee adopted a formal investment policy in November of 2021. It does call for an annual review, which we're doing today. The purpose of the investment policy statement is to assist the committee to effectively establish, monitor, and evaluate the investment portfolios and the underlying investments. And those underlying investments and portfolios will be reviewed at least annually. I think the committee effectively does it each quarter, so we're in compliance with that. It reiterates that the account owners bear the risk of the investment results because they pick their own portfolios. It provides that the responsibilities of the committee is to administer the program in compliance with the Internal Revenue Code and the Arkansas Act. And this policy statement says the committee is authorized to delegate certain responsibilities to professional experts in various fields. The committee has contracted with the census to be the program manager, and that's reviewed periodically. And it sets forth a number of bullet points that the program manager is to do, and I've reviewed those and they're in compliance. Provides that the underlying investments are limited to mutual funds, exchange traded funds, stable value investments, FDIC insured savings accounts. I've reviewed the policy. I would not recommend any changes. I'd just like to have the committee approve the investment policy.
So we need a motion,
Yes.
correct, to approve the
To continue as
continue
is.
investment policy. You get that, Rod?
I had a little trouble hearing, so just for my understanding that there are no changes in this investment policy from the prior. This is continuing existing policy, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the investment policy.
Thank you.
Second. We have a motion and a second to improve the investment policy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, passes. That's a good motion passes. That's good. Please.
Let the minutes reflect.
And then, John, did you want to segue into your
Budget report.
budget report?
Yeah, I think you've got a copy of the budget report. This is the year-end budget report for the fiscal year. The income was about $34,000 under budget because the market turned down several months ago. But the expenses were also $16,000 under budget. So overall, we had the revenues exceeding our expenses by about $83,000. We budgeted that to be $101,000, so it's pretty close to what the budget was. At June the 15th, we had about $308,000 in the Southern Bancorp account, $9,400 in the First Security account for a total of $317,500. That's my report. Happy to answer any questions.
And we'll have at the next board meeting we'll have the projected budget for fiscal year 24 for the committee to review.
Sure can.
Thank you, John.
Go to the asset page.
Just a second.
I sent it to you in the PDF.
I'm trying to get this stuff going. This computer's.
Yeah, we had to download everything onto a flash drive and
Yeah. I did clean up we're adding so many years, we have so many years going here. I had to basically say to take a few off the board and make it a little easier to see.
So what are we trying to do here?
I'm just trying to blow this up.
Oh.
These controls are getting in the way.
Yeah.
Can you go ahead and?
Yeah, that's right. So a lot of this is still market driven. We did finish out the month of May with over $550 million. You can see the year 2023 tracking. It's above where we were last year, but still below where we were this month back in 2021. The market was so strong before the correction started. So we're climbing out of it. We're heading in the right direction. So I don't know what the market is doing today, but so far so good. Next slide. So look at total contributions. We're at 25 million as of the end of May. So that is 6% down from 2022. Only if you look at the month by month activity contributions, only February and March exceeded last year. So that's, we saw some months from 2022 that certainly did better than we saw this year. Still no surprise. The market's still unsure. I think as we move forward, people will feel more confident about making their contributions. Withdrawals. We saw withdrawals of 16.5 million. That is actually less than what we saw year to date in 2022. And so much of that was kind of driven by the month of January last year. If you look at the chart, you see that huge number of withdrawals from last January. Next slide. So if you do the math, this is really how never seen this happen before. So net inflow total 8.5 million. That's something like $300,000 of what we saw the previous year. So I've never seen such a close similarity to the previous year, but that's where we are. So we ended the month of May with 34,290 accounts. The growth trajectory remains so similar year to year that it's pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And then accounts by residency, you still see the trend that they have, we went off, I say this every meeting, but we went back to 2007. That chart looked a lot different. Almost all the accounts were outside of the state of Arkansas. And here you can see each month that goes by, that the portion of in-state accounts continues to grow, and it's now it's obviously well above 80%. Average fund account size follows the asset chart basically about just over 16,000 average assets. You can leave it there, come on. But if you look at the average age, average account balance of many, that 17, 18-year-old has much more than the average total, sitting around 25,000. And then real quickly, on the advisor plan, we ended the month of May with 658 million across 16,967 accounts, with an average account balance of almost 39,000. And then lastly, new promise and gift data. So if you look at the direct plan, we're now at 12 million in gift contributions from your friends and neighbors. The advisor plan stands at 4.7 gift contributions. And we've had a lot of activity with direct, almost 24,000 contributions. The advisor plan almost 5,000. The direct plan average contribution through gifting was over 500. The advisor plan was almost 1,000. And then finally, on new promise rewards, we've now crossed 2.6 million in free money coming from organizations across the United States. Any questions?
I had a quick question. It was actually back on the withdrawal, on page 5. Is the thinking on the large, and perhaps this came up at the last meeting, so forgive me, but in January of last year, are we thinking that was people withdrawing for COVID or maybe non-qualified? Does this represent just qualified withdrawals or both?
All withdrawals. I don't recall, I'll look into the data, I do not recall.
I would
an uptick in
suspect,
non-qualified.
yeah.
I'll take a look.
Also, account balances were, for the industry, including this plan as well, were close to a peak. So this is before the market kind of went down in, 2 or 3 months after that. So when you have bigger balances and people have to pay off their school bills, it allows them to withdraw larger amounts of money. So
Oh,
that's part of it as well.
Okay.
So it's kind of a combination of.
okay,
So it's kind of like counterintuitive that when you see big withdrawal numbers, it seems like a negative, but it's actually people using the money for what they saved it for, which was, for it to grow, and then they have a bigger balance to withdraw.
okay.
But I will check and see if non-qualified took a dip up.
And maybe it wasn't January of 22. I mean, maybe it's whenever everything started really going south.
Let you know.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, just something basic. What is we know the average cost of one-year college to state university?
Here
And that Arkansas is the national average.
I don't
Now
know.
they change every.
I don't know if they can hear.
They said it ain't obvious, public, private, it's all over the board. I don't have the data. I'm sure we have it in the archives.
Yeah, I
They're
mean,
usually calculators.
yeah, so the one thing that they do every single year for a plan generally is that they strike like an actuarial value for how much it would cost for 4 years of college and maybe 4 years of grad school. So the maximum contribution amount for this plan is $500,000, right, as a result.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what they speculate. If you start saving today and you save for like 18 years, that you might need to save to go to 4 years of college and 4 years of grad school. So that's like a kind of back of the envelope way to back into it. So maybe you can see like a 250 and 250, depending on whether you go to a private school versus a state school, that cost is going to vary a lot. So like in-state public college tuition is roughly going to be like half of what it might be for a private institution. So I think like averages across the country, you're seeing something like $25,000 for tuition, room and board for like an in-state institution versus like 50 or more for a private institution. So it varies a lot.
And it changes every.
But it's scary when you look at that $500,000 because you look at average balances in this account on the direct sold side, it's 30 odd thousand, and on the advisor sold side, it's like 17 or 16 or something like that. People are really far away from saving what they need to get into college, considering the fact that you have all this inflation.
Yeah, on page 11, the average account's 38,000.
Yeah.
And that might get you a year or so.
Yeah, so there's a gap for sure.
It helps.
And again, I mean, so, you have a lot of beneficiaries who are under the, age of 10, and so those account values way down to the average. As the college rate develop school, we see those account values dramatically increase for both plans. So it's certainly the typical child getting ready to college has more than the average.
And our, messaging in between the lines with the 529 plan has always been to just help make a dent, in the college savings.
Scholarship.
Some people are fortunate enough to, do the 529 and be in a position to be able to pay for tuition and a degree debt-free, but those are few and far.
They are, most people don't
Yeah.
pay 100% of their costs with 529.
Every dollar saved is a dollar you don't have to borrow.
I was just curious with all the inflation we're seeing and everything else affecting everything. I just
I'll be
didn't know
happy.
what the cost of college was now, how much that jumped. A lot of stuff has been up 5, 8, 10, 12%.
Yep.
Well,
Every year.
college costs have exceeded inflation for the last 25 or 40 years. So I'll be happy to send you the latest costs. I suspect Arkansas is probably a really good value compared to nationwide costs. But I'll certainly be happy to share that.
I just feel like there's I just wonder if we're going to see a trend of colleges that are traditionally, you know, $40,000, $50,000 are going in an effort, especially since more people now are not automatically choosing college. Are they going to maybe bring down some of their costs? And I mean, if they're gonna try to remain a player and not lose students, especially as people are becoming more non-traditional students and don't wanna get in and do all the, you know, sorority and fraternity stuff and all those extras. I mean,
You
I don't
think-
know, just to be competitive.
You would think, you know, and it's interesting, especially with private institutions, the stated value, the sticker price is only paid by usually the very wealthiest people. And most people who aren't in that top, you know, 20% of income get a lot of subsidization by the school itself. So they get scholarships, you know, they're financial scholarships, not academic scholarships. And so they don't pay the true sticker price. But public schools, I mean, University of Texas, they don't give anybody a discount.
Yeah.
I mean, it just seems really, you know, you survey all our neighbors. I got one child, our youngest went to Texas and the oldest went to A&M. And I don't, they were 10 years apart, and the difference in cost in those 10 years was dramatic. It's like double.
I bet they let them in, because I know a lot of students in University of Arkansas,
That's true.
7% acceptance rate or something.
That is so true. You talk to
It might
everything.
be.
So when you get in, you're happy to pay the tuition.
Interesting.
The numbers are good, I just was curious about the inflation
Yeah,
cost.
well, we certainly get the.
Any questions, Ron or Amanda?
I don't have any.
Thank you, Dave.
All right, next we have our report from Amanda White with Vanguard.
Yes, thank you all, and good morning. It's nice to see everybody. And that's wonderful news on Treasurer Lowry, so thank you for that update. So I'm going to start today by reviewing the markets in the first quarter and year to date, and then discuss our outlook. And as always, feel free to interject with any questions. So Chris, if you want to start on slide 4. A bit of a brighter story, so good news, a bit of a brighter story than we had the last meeting to review fourth quarter, but the equity markets were up for the first quarter despite all the volatility and concerns we saw in the markets. Bond markets were up slightly also for the first quarter, but still feeling the pain of the rapid increase in interest rates we saw in 2022, which I know we talked about a lot at the last meeting. As far as year-to-date numbers are concerned, through Friday, both equity and fixed income markets were all positive. And you know, really, this is despite continued fears of a recession that a recession is looming. And you know, as we all saw in April and May, the last-minute debt ceiling agreement that we came to earlier this month really caused a lot of volatility in the markets, but still positive year-to-date through Friday. If you'll go to slide 6, Chris. A couple things I want to point out here. In particular, when you're looking at the U.S. equity sector returns, and again, this is first quarter results. So banks were really the anchor holding down the financial sector for the month. I think we all saw headlines in March as the consumers continue to monitor the regional bank situation we saw unfolding. And, you know, people were really, you know, monitoring that with caution. On the positive side, information technology, communication services, and consumer discretionary have really bounced back after a long 2022. And one of the big headlines this year, which I know we've all seen, and has had a significant impact on the market and various sectors, has been the topic of AI, artificial intelligence, and in particular, ChatGPT and generative AI. So there were 5 stocks that are within the S&P 500 index that have really benefited from this AI buzz. All names we've probably heard of, so Microsoft, Alphabet, NVIDIA, Apple, and Meta Platforms. And they're responsible for most, if not all, of the S&P 500's year-to-date returns. So really seeing it in those 2 specific sectors that I mentioned. So just a couple comments on AI. So it's really believed to be able to create efficiency and innovation in different market sectors. But what its overall impact to the economy will be is still really largely unknown at this point. I know in particular, so Vanguard, we've been monitoring this very closely. Our CEO, Tim Buckley, has been quoted saying that generative AI will revolutionize the asset management industry. And many believe the economy as a whole. So I know personally, I've been taking a look at this. I have not downloaded ChatGPT yet. We're not actually allowed to use it at Vanguard, but it's just a very fascinating, just a fascinating tool. And I mean, a lot of people are looking at this as an inflection point, similar to what the internet did to businesses. So, a lot is still yet to be known, but we're definitely watching this and already seeing some impacts in the market as a result. If you'll move to slide 7, Chris. Just a few items to point out here. As mentioned earlier, bond markets were positive for the first quarter and year to date, as the Fed did slow their pace of interest rate increases as compared to last year. So they did 3 25 basis point increases. They did pause at the most recent meeting earlier this month. And they suggested at this last meeting, which was about 2 weeks ago, that it could still hike interest rates by an additional, hold on one second, my light in my room just went off. Can you still see me? I guess I'm not moving enough. That still hike interest rates by an additional 50 basis points before, so by an additional 50 basis points before year end. Our base case, we're somewhat in line with what the Fed is saying. Our base case, and we've said this all year, is that we do believe that they do need to continue to increase rates. So our base case is about 25 basis points. That's about one more rate increase is probable. We do not see any decreases happening, really largely due to the persistent inflation we've been seeing. I'm going to pause for questions. I'm also just going to go back here and turn on the light. So my apologies. I'm just going to pause for 1 second. There we go. All right. I guess the sensors do work here. So I'm just going to pause for questions before I move on to what our outlook is.
I think we have any.
Okay, we'll keep moving forward. So Chris, if you go to slide 10. And so as I mentioned, just a couple of metrics that we're looking at or that we're closely watching within the economy. So in particular for inflation, we increased our forecast for year-end core inflation. I don't know if anyone recalls, but we were predicting it'd be 3% by the end of 2023. Obviously, we've seen, inflation has been a little bit stickier. So we increased our forecast to 3.3. And although we have seen inflation decrease since its peak in 2022, it's still well above the Fed's 2% target. And really the big thing that surprised us has just been the strength in the labor markets and the wage growth, which has worked into the inflation. And that has proven to be a little stickier, and it will take longer to come down. So on the topic of employment, the wait for the downturn in the US labor market goes on as unemployment remains historically low. Although some recent figures, if you saw the most recent employment report, we did see some softening. I think the rate increased up to 3.7%, but it's still historically low. Our projections are that we will see this rate continue to rise to the second half of the year, the year-end estimate of about 4.5%. So we should start seeing more unemployment and more job losses in the second half of this year. And our baseline expectation, I know we talked about it this last one, it might not feel it, but we still are expecting some sort of a mild recession within the US in the second half of this year, although the odds have risen that it could be delayed to 2024, just given the strength of the markets, the labor markets, and also the consumer. I don't know if any of you have been on vacation yet this summer, but airports are mobbed. So people are not slowing down, and that could really delay any sort of a recession from happening this year to next year. And we're really seeing, outside the US, other nations and regions are on a similar path. And so what does this mean for the investor going forward? So our updated 10-year outlook, again, this is on slide 10. We saw some small changes since December, a slight decline in both US and non-US equities due to an increase in valuations, and just a small decrease in expected returns for bonds due to interest rate declines in the 2-year plus maturities. Worth noting, these returns are still higher than they were at year end of 2021. In particular, the fixed income market, I know last year was a really rough year for any bond investors, but increase in rates, higher coupon payment. So our market outlook is still over 200 basis points higher for the fixed income market going forward. I'll pause here again for questions before I move on to the investment performance.
We have questions.
I think we're good, man.
You're good. All right. Moving on. So slide 16. And I won't spend too much time here because, really this is all has been covered within our talk about the markets this year. But products, underlying funds performed as you would expect, given previous comments. 1 month, 3 month, and year to date, all positive. Still need to point out 1 year, returns negative, based on the rough year we had in 2022, except for the stable value fund, just given the tough market we had in 2022. I'll pause here for questions. I mean, I'm happy to kind of talk through. I know I didn't put this up there, but any trends that we're seeing, or we can move on to the next agenda item.
Questions on portfolio performance?
I think we're good, Amanda.
You guys are easy.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you all.
Thank you.
Man, thank you for joining us. Thank you for the report.
No problem.
Just want to make sure, any questions, this is all good information. Thanks.
All right, yeah, commentary is good. So Amanda did a great job of kind of going through what's going on in the markets. Maybe I'll just highlight a couple of things. Obviously, we talked about sticky inflation. That's really been the story in the economy for the last year, right? Inflation has been running really, really hot. The Fed has obviously been reacting to that. They had an historically fast increase in rates over the past, 10 to 16 months. One of the things that Amanda touched on, which, the graph at the bottom illustrates there, is that job growth has been really, really, really resilient in the face of a lot of challenges in the economy. So what this graph shows is where jobs have gone from the start of a recession. And you can see this is charting recessions going back to 1953. Jobs have obviously tapered off when the economic conditions have deteriorated, right? And the orange line shows what's happening in 2023 is that job growth has been amazingly resilient, right? And that's been good for the economy, but not so good for inflation. As the Fed and central banks around the world have been trying to keep inflation down. The employment market has been incredibly, strong, and that continues to be one of the headwinds that the Fed, in trying to deal with inflation in the future, is trying to navigate. And as Amanda said, I think that what that leads to is that if core inflation continues to be very, very sticky, then the Fed is going to have to tighten further. So they've taken a pause for right now, but they've telegraphed that they may have to increase rates if inflation continues to rise. I think the danger that everybody's looking for is whether or not central banks around the world are over tightening and then drive economies around the world into a deeper recession, right? We don't think that that's going to be the case. In many ways, a lot of analysts have said that what we're experiencing in the economy today is like a rolling recession, which is a sector-led recession. So Earlier on, when rates really started rising, you saw a steep drop off in real estate and home sales. And that's been kind of like working through the system, and you see some of the home sales like rebounding again as people who originally sort of held off as rates were rising really, really rapidly in terms of getting a new mortgage. You know, there was just pent up demand after a while, and now rates have sort of stabilized at this new higher level, and people still need to buy homes. So the housing market is starting to rebound a little bit. As Amanda said, the rise in the stock markets has been extremely concentrated. So there have been a few technology stocks that have really been driving the increase in stock values. But overall, you know, if you look at it from a broad-based perspective, a lot of the companies have actually not been doing very well. So it's been a very narrow kind of drive in the markets. And the other big theme that we're seeing is, for the first time in a long time, the income part of fixed income, which was essentially returning almost nothing for, you know, to people for the last 10 years as rates were extremely low. Now people are getting income again from those things, right? And so a lot of money is flowing over to the fixed income side of investments, where people can get, you know, a 5% return from just being in a CD or a savings portfolio, right? So that's changing a lot of investment patterns. That said, the other interesting part of it is that, you know, investors continue to be optimistic. So you saw a lot of money market flow, where people basically taking money out of the stock market and going into money markets where they were getting a 5% yield, to now all of a sudden that flow is reversing. So you see money flowing out of money markets again and flowing back into the stock market. So the average investor is still pretty optimistic about the market. You've seen that in terms of the market values. And you've seen that in terms of, you know, 529 account values as well, because more people are investing, you know, their investments are doing better, they're rising and appreciating. So that said, you know, there's still a lot of volatility in the marketplace. It just goes to show you how resilient the market's been. When we had the situation in Russia over the weekend, that would have normally sent like the oil markets into a spiral, or the stock markets into a spiral. And, you know, it resolved itself basically within 36 hours, and the market really didn't get impacted at all. So there's a lot of unusual stuff happening right now. Super strong jobs, super strong optimism in the investment markets. But again, everybody's sort of holding their breath to see like what happens with the Fed. Do they continue to increase rates? What happens with the war? So a lot of volatility.
Is there any consensus on the number of hikes though? I mean, I hear one, possibly two.
Yeah, it's funny because if you were looking at where like what rates were pricing in like even 6 months ago, there were a decent number of people that were saying that the Fed was going to stop hiking rates and actually start decreasing. And now sentiment has changed, where people don't think that the Fed is going to start cutting rates anytime soon, but a lot of people think that rates were going to be held at this level for a while. So what tends to happen when, you know, central banks increase rates is that it takes a while for it to completely work its way through the system, where economic activity starts to drop. And that's the big question, you know, in terms of when are companies going to start to become a little bit less optimistic, hire a little bit less, and is the labor market going to become a little bit looser, in which case, you know, prices will start to fall. So I think, you know, or at least BlackRock thinks that there could be another 2 hikes. That's possible, but again, it depends. It's the market's extremely driven based on news right now, and every single new economic data point that comes out is being really examined. So if the numbers start to improve, then, you know, maybe the Fed could come off of that. But for right now, they're talking more hawkish that they could actually raise.
But the rates are historically still incredibly low.
Incredibly low.
Yeah.
Right.
Getting great.
Yes.
Yeah, my first mortgage was, I don't know, 16%.
Yeah, exactly. From a historical perspective, rates are still really low. We've been spoiled with super low inflation over the past like 10 or 15 years, right? Where, I mean, we had this period of 2 to 3% inflation for a long period of time. So we'll see if we get back to that, or whether we have a newer normal where, you know, maybe inflation is not at 2 or 3%, but maybe it's at, you know, 3 to 4 or 4 to 5%. That remains to be seen. So as far as the numbers within the plan are concerned, you know, we've seen a bounce back of the market. And Chris, if we can go to slide 9. You can see that the high watermark of the plan in terms of year end was at the end of 2021, where we hit almost 700 million. We didn't quite get above that, but and certainly a dip in a historically bad market in 2022. But, we're climbing back. We're close to 660. And hopefully, if the markets continue to cooperate, we can, establish a new high water mark, which would be incredible, right? So, but it's a 7% increase since the end of 2022. And in terms of like Arkansas specific data on the next slide, you see that assets, 7% increase in the state to 70 million, which is incredible. 57 firms still selling the plan. 461 financial advisors, still pretty much level. Actually, the numbers had gone down a bit last year because, again, bad market. Accounts are up 2% since the beginning of last year. Average account sizes are up 5%, up to 17,000 per account. And the firms in bold on the right side continue to increase the number of advisors selling the plan within the state. So Edward Jones, incredibly, almost 200 advisors in the state. Raymond James continues to increase their number of advisors, 58. Stevens added an advisor, I believe, in the last quarter, so they're up to 26. It just goes to show you that the tax incentives that were instituted 2 to 3 years ago made a huge impact in the state. And 70 million out of a plan that's roughly 660 million. It's over 10% of the assets now within Arkansas. As Dave was saying, in this plan, the vast majority of the assets, way higher percentage than exists today, were in out-of-state accounts. And the number inside the state has really, really increased. And the amount of exposure that the plan has and the usage among financial advisors has really skyrocketed within the past few years. So that is it. Unless there are any questions.
I appreciate your commentary on the economy. I watch that. You don't have a crystal ball. That's everything, guys.
It does.
Listen, the labor shortage, driving the wages affects a lot.
Absolutely. Affects everybody.
Talking about average Joe on the street when people, small business are trying to hire people, just the cost. They got businesses trying to get employees to service that.
100%. I mean, in New York, we can't, going into the summer and everybody using the pools, they can't hire enough lifeguards for pools and beaches.
I heard where they were offering lifeguards like $3,000 signing bonuses.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
I'm changing careers.
Just a housekeeping heads up. I think we're fixing to lose battery on our microphone here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I did have one request we could, I'd like to see her just tell us where to go later. I'd like to see, the Arkansas summer, I'd like to see a comparison on 50 states.
Yeah, absolutely. We
Say
can,
about,
we can get that for you.
Interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah, what you see is a concentration of assets in the larger money center states, which is true for most plans.
East and West Coast.
Yeah, so where there's more money, then, you have concentration there, exactly. But, yeah, we can get that for you.
If I remember correctly, you have some celebrities, assets in the advisor plan off the West Coast.
Yeah, I would not be surprised.
What? John, is your report?
Nope, that is it.
All right. Any questions? From John's report to John, from Rod or Amanda, anyone? Okay, Brandon, we want to go to new business?
The only item I had for new business before we lose our sound would be consideration for our next meeting on Tuesday, September 12th. If anybody has an obvious conflict that would prevent us from looking at that. So we'll send a follow-up. But for now, if you would just indicate on your calendars, just a temporary hold on the 12th.
Okay, and I'll also make sure that you have our new director's email at the artrs.gov so that he starts July 1 is the official start date.
And remind the group again who your new director is going to be.
Oh, sorry, it'll be Mark White.
And where's he coming from?
He's at DHS now, so current state employees moving over agencies, and we're looking forward to his tenure here.
All
All
right.
right.
Well, I just want to say before we get off here, adjourn, that Heather and I can speak for her a little bit, that we attended our first NAS meeting, and we appreciate the hospitality and the visit with Dave and John and Chris. Learned a lot, very proud of the work where we are in Arkansas and talking to other states, just watching it. Got a room for improvement, we're on the right track. It was very encouraging, and I know Chris covered all the 529s and Heather jumping in a few. Talking to other states and Fran, they're doing a great job. Just want to let y'all know that it's a good NAS meeting and glad that Arkansas got recognized. And I guess with that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second that. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.